So for me, relationships, I mean, whether that be friendships or um, girlfriend, relationships with girls, stuff like that, has always been uh, interesting. Um, in my mind, as a kid, I mean, since I was 7 years old, the main thing that I was thinking about was finding somebody to spend the rest of my life with, honestly. And at 7 years old, that's pretty early age to be thinking about that. But I don't know if it's because of the environment that my parents actually set for me, and my parents are still together to this day. So um, I don't know if it was the environment, that home environment, and I had such a desire for it. I had in some people's mind, they would think, and I guess I still have this view. It's somewhat old-fashioned in that if I am with somebody, to a certain extent, it's my job to make sure that we're well taken care of. We are financially taken care of. So I'm old school in that aspect, I guess. And depending on who you talk to and what time of the year that you talk to them, you may get different responses or different feelings based on that, or what's going on in politics and all that kind of stuff. You may get different views on my old-fashioned mentality. But I remember laying in the bed at 7 years old, and in my little twin bed, me and my pillow. And I remember laying in the bed, I'd put my pillow next to me. And this is talk about sharing some stuff. I put my pillow next to me and imagine that was the faceless form of my future wife. And rolled over to go to sleep. And as if she was laying there next to me, I would say, "I love you." And in my mind, I would hear, "I love you too." And that "I love you too" had such a deep, deep, deep feeling to it. It was like my dream was to connect with one person, and that person would become a part of me, and I would become a part of them. And again, I mean, if you have a spiritual background as I do, and in Genesis, God says, um, uh, "Therefore shall man leave his mother and father, and cleave unto his wife, and the two of them shall become one flesh." That's in people now, and I've listened to other people say stuff like, when you get married, uh, and don't get me wrong, I believe that you can't rely on somebody else for your happiness. But I do believe that when two people come together in that depth of a relationship, there's a connection there. There's a bond between those two individuals that is not between anyone else. If you get married and you have children, you're not married to your children. You're married to your husband or wife. If you get married, you're not married to your parents. You're married to your husband or your wife. If you get married, you're not married to your friends. I don't care whether you knew those people before you met your significant other or not. You're not married to your friends or their friends. You're married to each other. And in my mind, in a married relationship, you make a choice that this individual comes before everyone else, including myself sometimes. And if two people actually make that determination, if both, not one, both people actually make that true determination that, you know what, I'm going to put this person before me, recognizing, of course, that you still need to be yourself. And I'm not taking anything away saying, oh, you know what, now I'm no longer who I am because I'm attached to this person. No, you're still a unique individual. You still have your own personal gifts and talents. But I believe you can complement each other. And when you find the right person, you will complement each other. I honestly believe that. So, at 7, 8 years old, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm dreaming of that relationship. And so when it came to having girlfriends in school, it's not even hard to say that. I mean, I shouldn't even have to say it, that most of them didn't get me. Most of them didn't. If I had a girlfriend, it was usually for a very short period. But because at that age, it's more of a playful thing. Okay, I'm infatuated or fascinated by this individual for this period of time. Therefore, they're going to become my boyfriend or girlfriend, and then we're going to, the giggles and all this kind of stuff. I was not there. I mean, yes, I would fall deeply for somebody and hope that this person would actually feel the same thing for me. And that also got me bullied. I had my little, and I used, I wrote poetry. So, for example, I remember this one girl named Monique. I can still picture what she looked like in my mind. I can still picture her in my mind as a kid. And honestly, right now, I cannot figure out why I was so infatuated with her. I just don't know. But there's something about her that just got me. And I was a writer. I've always been a writer. That's one of the other things that, and that's one of the things that stuck with me. I'm a writer, and I love to share ideas. So, I love poetry. I used to read like Shakespeare and quotes and all. I love written, even though English was not my best language, and my best language. Even though English was not my best subject in school, I loved to read. And I still do. I love to share ideas, thoughts and ideas. I love to share those experiences, and so I wrote poetry. Evidently, I was pretty decent at it. I've got notebooks in the basement in a container of poetry, and unfortunately, a lot of the things that I wrote were very sad. But I wrote poetry, and so I used to write stuff to girls about the way they made me feel. And it wasn't a sexual thing at all. I mean, not even close. I would write about the color of their eyes, the way that they smiled, or something that I noticed about their smile or the way that they talked. I would write poetry and say things such, I hope, that you could see within me. Basically saying, how, or if if I could have the opportunity to be able to um, be the man of your dreams, and I don't know, that's a little cornier than what I actually wrote. Uh, if I really thought about it, I could probably write something right now. But at any rate, and I wrote this note to this girl, and of course, back in the day, and that probably still happens now. Now it probably happens through a text message. You get a little sheet of paper, and you write on there, "I like you. Do you like me? Yes or no?" And put the little blocks, right? Not the brother. Mm-mm. I wrote you at least half page of what it was that I saw in you, and asked you if there's a possibility that you could see any value in me as well. I mean, and I'm talking like middle school. Well, I shoot as far as elementary school, as well as I could articulate. And I, like I said, I read a lot. My spelling has always been my weakness, but I read a lot. Uh, I wrote some stuff, and like I said, I was good enough that I even had friends that would say, "Hey, I want to write my girlfriend a poem, but I don't know what to do," and I would ask them questions. So, how do you what when you talk to her? What is it that you feel? When you first saw her, what is it that made you want to get to know her? Um, what is something that you would like to do with her? A place you'd like to go, or what is something that you have done recently? All clean stuff, all clean stuff. And I would take that information, and then I would write out a poem. Having known the individual, I would write it as if they were the one saying it, and give it to my friend, and then they would go give it to the girl, and that obviously that always worked very well for them, and that it made their girlfriends very happy. But yet, most of the time, I didn't have a girlfriend. But I'd written this note to this girl, and she, I had it folded up, and I was going to give it to her, and I'm surprised I didn't try some origami or something, because I would actually try to fold it in a certain way, so it would have a certain presentation, and I guess it fell out of one of my books or something, and one of the guys got it, and just took it, and I kept asking him, "Give it back to me, give it back to me." Read it out, and this was on the bus, on the way to school. And this guy was he wasn't massively big, but comparing to me, I was always real slim. So he was a big guy. And that was during the time frame that I was still kind of afraid of everybody. He read that letter that I wrote to her off on the school bus. Everybody's laughing. And me being afraid of everybody, something in me stood up. I pushed that guy back up against the window of the bus and told him to give me my letter back. And this is how unintimidating I was. He gave me the letter back, but he laughed. He was like, "Man, oh man, dude, I didn't know you had it in you. You trying to step up." That's what, all this kind of stuff. And then, he gave me the letter back. That, believe it or not, that made me feel better about the fact that, because everybody was focused on laughing at the fact that I stood up to him more so than what they read in the letter. So it took the emphasis off of that. But Obviously, she ended up being the girlfriend to another friend of mine. When I go to high school, everybody's taking their relationships to the next level. I didn't have a girlfriend. I'm not gonna say I went around looking. Okay, what about her? What about her? What about her? I didn't do that, but it was something that I felt that I really wanted and needed. And the reason why I believe that it was so important to me is because I figure this. A lot of guys didn't get me because I didn't watch a lot of sports and all that kind of stuff. There was a period in my life where I did watch basketball, and that was only because, and I actually played basketball for a little while, but um, Michael Jordan, I mean, dude was an awesome basketball player. So I, during the time frame where he played, I was in the military, but I did watch basketball. So I didn't, most of that football, I watched football. I had a couple of football teams that I was fans of for a while. And, but honestly, it just didn't do anything for me. And so the guys that I knew, I didn't always have stuff to actually be able to talk to them about. So what I would do is I'd hide behind a book. I'd hide behind all of these different things. And since I couldn't relate or seem to relate to anybody, I figured somewhere out there is a young lady that has the same feeling or is looking for somebody like me. At least I hoped so. If I could find her, then I wouldn't have to feel like I was alone anymore. I wouldn't have to feel like I was by myself. I could have one person that, you know what, when all else fails, you can get me. When nobody else can understand what it is I'm thinking or what I'm going through, I got you. And you have me. And I think I've missed that a few times, the potential a few times in my life because I just didn't see it. And I get, I think, so I had a friend, well, before I even say that, I think that sometimes what you need is right in front of you and you can't even see it. So my best friend in my senior year of high school was a girl. Now, this is the weird thing about this. So I remember seeing her in middle school and, not middle school, I remember seeing her in high school in a math class I was in. And I was like, oh my goodness, she is beautiful. To this day, that one I can understand why I was attracted to her. I understand it. She was beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful, and she had a great personality. She was comical and stuff, where I was not that comical. But she would make me laugh, and she was accepting and non-judgmental. And somehow I got the courage to just talk to her. She was in one of my math classes, along with one of my ex-girlfriends. That's a totally different thing. But anyway, I would go into class, and her cousin went to the church I went to, and I guess she came to church one Sunday, and I found out that was her cousin. And so I go in, and in order to talk to her, I brought her cousin up. I said, "Hey, I know your cousin. Yeah, he goes to my church or whatever." And she said, "Oh, okay." And like I said, she was so easy to talk to. The conversation just took off. It was just, and so every day it was like, and we got closer and closer and closer. She became, at that point, my best friend. So much of a great friend of mine that we ate lunch together. We rode to school together. I had a car. I was driving back and forth to school. So um, I'd go pick her up, and we'd go to school together, and all of that. So, but she had a boyfriend at a different school. Everybody thought that she was my girlfriend, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it, because I was attracted to her. But I didn't know how to tell her that. We had gotten this really great friendship, and I didn't know how to tell her that I liked her. Well, to this day, I never told her that. And the unfortunate thing is, my then after that, quote unquote, high school sweetheart, who was everything but a sweetheart to me, and essentially became my first wife. She destroyed my relationship with her, because she attempted to separate me from everybody or anybody who actually cared about me. And I did try to reach out to her after, just years later. I did try to reach out to her just to say, just to try to rekindle that friendship. I mean, she totally destroyed, my ex-wife totally destroyed that friendship. And lied on her, possibly lied on me, and said I said things about her. She lied. And I was like, you know what? And I was so, she knew me well enough to know that I was so, if this is my wife, I don't care who it is, if they have something negative to say about her, I have nothing else to do with them. I cut people off that would have anything negative to say about my wife. And she knew that. So she told me, oh, she said this, this, and this. And I said, you know what? I don't want to have nothing else to do with you. And she just destroyed it. And she then essentially worked on destroying me. She worked hard to destroy me. And some of those, crazy shows that you might see on television about how this guy might marry this woman, this evil, and just does so many evil things to him. That happens in true life. That happens in real life, because I experienced it. I was married to her. I knew her for 6 years, married her 4. And I'll give you an illustration of how things started out. It was time for prom. I wanted to go to prom. And I wanted her to go with me. So I said, hey, I want you to go to prom with me. And she was like, no, I don't want to go. And I was, why not? Just she didn't want to go with me, is what the problem was. She became my girlfriend because I was one of the few guys that actually had a car. And I got a little bit more freedom in that I could go to her house and hang out, or I could, go to the mall. I was working and stuff, and I built up the trust. My parents, they trusted me to go and take care of things and do things that needed to be done, but and not to do stuff that was stupid. And so she was with me because I had a car, saying, okay, fine, if you're not going to prom, I'm not going to prom. And she's like, well, why don't you just go with your friend, same girl, your best friend? I said, but she's not my girlfriend. She ended up going to my prom with somebody else, which was cool, because she was there when we got there, but we ended up not staying. I was only there. We went, showed up, got a tuxedo, did all of this stuff, took pictures. I don't even know. I probably still have pictures somewhere, because I don't really keep pictures of her, because I don't want to continue to remember that experience. But my mom keeps all my pictures, so she probably has one somewhere. But waited till the last minute and told me, okay, fine, we'll go. So I got the tuxedo, all that kind of stuff. We go there, spend maybe 5-10 minutes at the prom, and then leave. And I think there was a part of it I was relieved because I do have, like I said, even back then I had social anxiety issues. So being around a bunch of people in a real social environment where you have to dance at this point, and I'm worried about what everybody's going to think about how I dance. Not thinking that I can't dance, but just still worrying about what people are going to have to say about it. So we didn't even dance. We went there, said hello to a couple of people, left. And so the next year it was her prom. I was in the military. I was actually in Texas at the time. And essentially what I told her was I didn't have a lot of vacation. So she had a choice. I would come home for her, and by this time I'd already proposed. She had an engagement ring on. I, you know, so what I told her was, you have a choice. I can either come home for your graduation, or I can come home for your prom. Just whichever one it is that you would prefer for me to be at. I said, but unfortunately I can't come to both. And she said, oh, just come for graduation. I said, okay, fine. So that was perfect for her, because it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. She really had no real love for me. So what she said, the reason why she said that is so she'd get an opportunity to go to prom with somebody else. So she calls me up a couple of weeks later and says, hey, prom's coming up. And I just wanted to see, ask you if it's okay for me to go to prom with somebody else. And I said, well, in my mind, I said, well, I was like, you know what? I had an opportunity to go to my prom, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So I'm not going to, I don't feel like it's right for me to tell you not to go just because I'm not there. So if you want to go, I ain't going to say I'm happy about it, but if you want to go, then go. And she turns around and says, good, because I was going to go anyway. Wait a minute. What the heck did you ask me for? One, I said what you wanted me to say, basically. I told you it was fine for you to go. So it was not even necessary for you to even say what you said. So, but then you're going to turn around and tell me? Anyway? Well, guess what? Well, I didn't care what you said. I was going to go anyway. Then what the heck did you ask me for? Really? And you know what? That should have been the indication that I needed to let me know that this is not the right person for you. But because I wanted somebody, one person, to appreciate me and all of that, I was so blind I didn't see it. Just because she was there saying, okay, yeah, I'll be your girlfriend, I'll be your fiance, all this kind of stuff. So at some point we ended up separating. And she was still somewhat close to my parents, but she was lying to them too. My mom would actually go by, and they go do stuff together. She'd pick her up and take her to the mall and stuff like that. And my mom would go by to pick her up, and there'd be a bunch of guys around, and she'd say, "Oh, okay, who are these?" She said, "Oh, they just my cousins." She didn't have any real family in the area. We didn't know that until after me and her got divorced. She never had any real family in the area. And which is crazy that it took that long for me to figure it out. The only family she had was her mom, her dad, and her sisters and brothers. So why was it, she's got all these dudes hanging out? Why do you think she had all these dudes hanging out? So we ended up getting, separating for a period of time. We ended up, I think, about 6 months. I at some point I kind of just got fed up and said, forget it. And so I was like, whatever. And I started kind of dating in Texas, where I was. And I went out and all this kind of stuff and met somebody else who really seemed like she cared about me and all of this kind of stuff. But I'd only known her I'd known her for like a month. But she was awesome. She was wonderful. We were going to church together. I mean, really, really enjoying the time. Really enjoying time together. And I got orders to go to Germany. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be going to Germany. And I believe I was supposed to be there for 2 years. So it was either, no, it was not, Germany's not a 1-year tour. At least not back then. It was 2 years. So got my orders to go to Germany. And this girl was like, what about us? What about us? I want to be with you. And I was like, marriage is a big step. And we talked about it a little bit. And I didn't feel like I'd known her long enough. I was like, I'm sorry. I can't. I'm scared. I'm scared to death. I can't do it. And so she cried. And I left. And I spent the rest of the time in Texas by myself. However, I told my mom, when I told my mom I was going to Germany, and she was like, well, are you going to tell, my ex-girlfriend? And I was like, no, I am not telling her anything. But I tell her when I get there. I was feeling myself then. I was like, you know what? I'm fed up with this. I'll tell her when I get there. I started feeling, because I care about people. I care about how people feel, and I actually cared. I still loved her, and I cared about her feelings. So I called her up and I said, look, I've got orders. I'm going to Germany. I had 1 week left. When I called her, I was in Texas for 1 week. I was already starting to turn on all of my stuff. I was going to go home for a month, and then I was supposed to get on my flight. And so I get on the phone with her, and I said, look, I will be home in a week, and from there I'm going to Germany for 2 years. And she says, well, what about us? Which shocked me. I was like, you actually really thinking about us? Now, let me explain something else to you that I left out. This girl broke up with me when I was in basic training. When I left for basic training, she also broke up with me. Sent me what we call, or I don't know if they still use the term, a Dear John letter. In basic, while I was in basic training, dealing with the most stressful environment that I'd ever experienced in my life. She sends me that. Shortly after that, she starts sending me letters apologizing. I want to be with you. I love you, and all this kind of stuff. My drill sergeant would throw those letters at me. Female drill sergeant. Hey, she wants you back. Because she would write stuff on the outside. She wants you back. She loves you. Get rid of that, and I mean cursing and everything else. You better not go back to her. It was so. One of my female dressers. She had me cracking up, but I still had, So she'd already broke up with me once. We broke up again. I'm getting ready to go to Germany. I call her back. She says, "What about us?" And I said, "Well, I still want you to be my wife if you want to be with me." It's the worst mistake I ever made in my life. She says, "We'll talk about it when you get home." I was only supposed to be there for a week. I call my mom. My mom calls me. My dad actually flew to Texas because my mom didn't want me to drive back from Texas by myself. So my dad flew to Texas. And he's in a hotel room. My mom calls me up in the hotel. And she says, Are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, she's planning a wedding. She got that wedding together within a week. Within a week, she got that whole wedding together. I mean, the wedding itself. It was at my parents' house. My grandfather, who was a minister, or was a pastor, performed the ceremony. It was only family there. And the ceremony itself was in my front yard at my house, at my parents' house. So we didn't have expenses. The biggest expense was getting her a dress and buying a cake. And I wore my military uniform. We were married, stayed at my parents' house. I left, went to Germany. She goes back to her dad's house. Now, her dad didn't even show up to the wedding because, if I remember correctly, her dad didn't show up. Her grandfather gave her away. Her dad didn't show up because he didn't approve of me. And I couldn't figure that out. I couldn't figure out why he would not approve of me. But that's fine. So I left. Went to Germany. I'm calling my wife, talking to my wife on the phone. One moment she's like, okay, I'm coming. Because I'm preparing everything. So that I had to extend my tour to 3 years. Get all of my stuff together for find us a place. I didn't take my car, so I had to buy a car there, get insurance set up, get everything situated for her, get an apartment, get furniture, all of that. And I started working on all of that stuff, and in the process, I don't want to come. Okay, I just stay here. Okay, I'm going. Okay, I'm going to just stay here. No, I'm going. I'm back and forth with me. At this point, I was not a drinker before. I started drinking heavily. There are weekends that that I had this one glass that I'd actually stole from a German restaurant. Had a gold rim around the top. Nice glass with a emblem on it. There was a weekend that glass, I never saw the bottom. Never saw the bottom of that glass. And I was drinking stuff that I had never heard of before. I'd go in a room, a guy had a bottle that they were getting ready to throw in the trash can. I'm not drinking that. And these are people who seasoned drinkers. I'm not drinking that. And I said, give it to me, I'll drink it. Put some in my glass. I took a sip of that stuff, and it was like it ripped a layer or two of flesh all the way down to my stomach. That was some tough. After I throw that away, no problem. I never want to see it again. But so at one point she says, well, I'm not coming. I'm going to stay here. And I said, you know what? Then we're getting divorced because I did not marry you. I don't want to be separate from my wife. Where I am, my wife should be with me. She knew what she was getting into when she accepted that. When she accepted marrying me and did all of this rushing, she didn't want me to have time to change my mind. She married me specifically to get out of a situation. She married me because she didn't want to be where she was. And that was it. And I accepted that because I didn't see my own value. I needed someone in my life to validate me. I needed someone in my life to make me feel like I was worth something. So I accepted that. So again, when I say, why am I here? It's because of experiences like that in my life. Okay, I'm not trying to start the waterworks again. I still have my box of tissue here, but there are experiences like that in my life that I don't want anybody else to have to experience. I don't want you to have to experience. And if I can save you from that, if I can help you find the true value in yourself, truly find that you are worth so much alone, and you don't need anybody's acceptance to validate you. You don't need anybody. You have the ability to be anything and everything you want to be just by being yourself. You were created a wonderful creature. I don't want you to have to validate yourself in that way. So that is the reason why I'm here, is because I want you to be able to be passionate, be confident, and be strong. Most of all, I want you, as well as myself, to be able to just be yourself.